Oh, Luke Cage, The Tale of Two Halves. A show that had the potential to match the success of Daredevil and Jessica Jones Season 1, but unfortunately drops the ball halfway through. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and tell a friend if you haven't. If you're new here, check out the channel and let me know what you think. Let's dive into Luke Cage Season 1. Here's the thing, I enjoy Luke Cage Season 1. However, I will be the first to admit that there is a steep drop-off in quality compared to Daredevil and Jessica Jones' first seasons, and even Daredevil Season 2 for all of its flaws. It's really disappointing because this show, at least Season 1, has all of the trappings of a really good series, but fumbles them right at the halfway mark. Spoiler alert, I'm talking about Cottonmouth's death. I would contend that Cottonmouth is as compelling of a villain in this street-level era as Kilgrave and Kingpin. I mean, Mahershala Ali is incredible in this role. He disappears into it just like David Tennant and Vincent D'Onofrio. He's so convincing as this imposing, self-indulged, ruthless gangster. Everything he does, the way he speaks, the way he walks, his laugh, it's just all chef's kisses. And I like the idea of Luke Cage's Season 1 nemesis just being a normal human with no powers, but who has the money and influence and manpower to ruin him. And then he's just confusingly and sort of unceremoniously killed off and replaced by two villains, Black Mariah and Diamondback. And the thing is that they're both compelling villains in their own right, and I enjoy both of those characters, but this season is just overstuffed. I think Diamondback's backstory as a bastard brother to Cage and the resentment he feels towards him, it's interesting. I also think him being this elusive and influential kingpin who hides in the shadows is really cool. And the idea of the Judas bullet is a fun addition, but this should have been Chapter 2. This season is essentially two seasons, two stories meshed into one. What this initial season should have been was Cage coming to terms with being a hero as Cottonmouth continues to hold this grudge against him and cause turmoil in Cage's life. Then Cage takes him down and restores Harlem. That's Season 1. Then in Season 2, due to a power vacuum caused by Cottonmouth's death or arrest, or however you want to take it, Mariah takes over and Diamondback comes into play as Cage's past comes back to haunt him. And maybe Diamondback and Mariah team up, maybe it sort of plays out essentially the same way, but that could have been and should have been a whole season in and of itself. And what we're left with is this sort of awkward transition at the midway mark, and it becomes something else entirely, and it just feels so disjointed. It's not awful, but it's too much narrative for one season, especially a season that serves as an origin for Cage. Aside from the messy structure of this story, most everything else is pretty damn good. Mike Colter, who at the time I only knew from Halo and obviously Jessica Jones, is great as Cage. Granted, I don't think he's the most talented actor in the world, but he's perfect for this role. In the beginning, Cage is a man just trying to live a simple life and go unnoticed, as he does. Colter plays him with such quiet reservations, it's fantastic. And he transitions so well into this proud, confident hero who has accepted this role towards the climax of this show, and he becomes an ultimate badass. As I stated above, Ali is hands down the most impressive performance in this show. Rosario Dawson is back as Claire Temple, as great as she always is. Simone Missick is a great addition as NYPD cop Misty Knight, who becomes a close ally to Cage throughout the season. Theo Rossi and Alfre Woodard are both solid in their sort of minor villain / henchman roles. And I feel like Eric LaRae Harvey never got enough credit for his portrayal of Diamondback. He's a delight. He's so skeevy and maniacal, seeking revenge against Cage. Admittedly, his character gets a bit silly towards the end with the inclusion of the power armor, but the character is still written and acted fairly well. Look, I don't hate the idea of the power armor. I mean, I get it. Cage is indestructible, so you need a deterrent, like Judas bullets, power armor, whatever, but goddamn, just one more pass over from the costume department, please. That outfit is terrible. Look, they were trying to pay homage to his comic book wardrobe, I think, but Jesus Christ, what even is that? And you're going against an ultra-powerful superhuman, so why a helmet with just a visor instead of a full protective mask? It just doesn't make sense. Not to mention that climactic fight is sort of underwhelming. I think Cage's story as a whole is interesting. I like that they didn't make him from Harlem like he is in the comics. I think making him sort of a stranger with a mysterious past is more compelling. And he grows to love Harlem and its people because of his late wife, and that's the driving factor that influences him to ultimately take up this mantle. The only other gripe I have for this first season is the action. It's very hit or miss, which is confusing because in Daredevil's sort of a league of its own, so that's not really fair, but even in Jessica Jones, the action is great. In Luke Cage, a lot of times it just seems kind of wonky. There are a lot of moments when Coulter's body movement or language doesn't quite match up with the outcome of his actions. And I get it, he's super strong, he could flick someone and they would go flying across the street, but it just looks so weird and awkward sometimes. And there are a lot of cuts in the middle of these large action sequences as if they knew the choreography wasn't living up to the standards that it should have, and it's just kind of underwhelming, to say the least. Luke Cage Season 1 is a good show. It boasts a compelling narrative and a great cast. It's also distinct in its own right. It has its own style, like all of these MCU Netflix shows do, as it utilizes music, especially from respected black artists, in a unique and enjoyable way. And that was a welcome surprise. Even though this season feels like it has too much narrative for its own good, and the action doesn't quite hit like its predecessors, it's still very enjoyable nonetheless. Oh, and I forgot. Goddamn, 13 episodes. Whose idea was that? Just do 10. 10 to me is the sweet spot. And it's crazy because Marvel still hasn't figured this out.